And close the snap with the.
The zoning board also answered.
He never said, I think so. The 15th doesn't sound.
You seen them? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
First time.
We just give it a few minutes to see if Vanessa comes.
She's trying to find her way here.
Huh?
She's trying to find her way here. We're going back and forth.
Can you make sure you talk loud, less when you're cooking it? Thanks.
Nothing in my file.
I was gonna. Best way to.
So we're pretty cozy tonight.
Yep.
It's only
There's
four
only
of us.
four of us.
Okay. But you moving over made you.
Oh, you're going that way here?
Oh, so
Yeah,
you're-
because you
Oh,
don't
okay.
get cream in your neck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no problem.
I made the same mistake you did. You started heading for that one. and you're like,
No, you sit here. Thank you.
You get an extra one? You need one?
If you have it.
Yep.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I see what you mean.
You ready now, Sean? Good evening, everybody. Want to welcome everybody to the Consolidated Planning Board meeting, the First Prize Redevelopment Joint Overlay District. Call the meeting to order, roll call. Looking down the table, Vanessa,
Yes.
Mark,
Here,
Greg,
Here.
I am here. Martin is not here tonight. If you've had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting, that was on April 17th. Any questions about that?
I
Any
make a motion
comments?
to approve the minutes.
All right,
I
Mark,
second.
Vanessa, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's approved. Sean, is there anything from your table to start off with?
I don't. Brad, do you have anything for Guy?
No?
No.
Okay. Bill, you want to take off?
Okay.
Okay, how's that? You guys hear me okay? Perfect. If I'm too loud or not loud enough, just tell me, okay? Bill Havelock, and I have Dan Hirschberg, as always, our civil engineer with us tonight. Thank you for accommodating a last minute change of venue. Fortunately, it wasn't too far, so sorry about that, but fortunately, we were able to have an alternate right down the road. In response to the comments from the Consolidated Planning Board meeting of last month, we submitted our revised plan on May 5th that we'll walk everybody through tonight. The following revisions have been made. Aaron, can you pull up the revised site plan? So number one, we shifted the location of the main entrance. We pointed out, let me get the laser. Here's our new main entrance. As you remember, it was over here, so it was not aligned with Russell Road, and now it is. And that was the purpose of the realignment, is to align with Russell Road. We adjusted some of the buildings in the center of the site accordingly as we shifted the entrance over. But overall, the integrity and overall character of the prior site plan remains. That's number one, as far as the main revisions. Number two, and biggie, is we adjusted some of the building positioning so that no buildings are bisected by the Albany Colony municipal boundary line, which is very important to all of us. This removes a lot of the issues associated with that we've really talked about since day one. Number three, the size of the hotel on the east end, there's a hotel, has been shrunk for decrease from 185 rooms to 125 rooms. And what this does is this allows for 12,000 square feet of retail right on the corner of Exchange and Everett. So that is certainly the best location for any kind of retail on this property to go where the most commercial and retail are, on the corner of Exchange and Everett. So, Aaron, I think we have the next slide, I think compares the two. Okay, so this is a really good direct comparison. Down below was the prior concept plan, and above is what you just saw. And when you look at it, here was the main entrance, shifted over to the right. That's really probably the biggest revision that you're going to see. But yet the integrity and the characteristics of the main boulevard, the connectivity, the walkability, that all really retains or maintains, yet now you have a much more functioning main access point. And then here used to be the one big hotel, no retail, and that's split into two. So revisions that really help the function, help the municipal boundary line, but keeping in tune with what was always vision and plan here. With the shift in the site plan comes a shift in the phasing, and Aaron, you should have, okay. So here's the revised site plan. Phase one, right here, you have your mixed-use building and a pod and a cluster, 216 units with the mixed-use building. Phase two, to the left of it, another pod, we call it a neighborhood of the same amount, 216. Phase three is your largest at 256 on the end. And then phase four is it's the remaining 136 units, as well as the hotel and the retail. Obviously, as I've always talked about, the retail piece and the hotel are really market driven. Would we like to build them sooner? Absolutely. But right now, with everything happening in the world, it's not something that we would want to realistically put in an earlier phase. So let me compare this phasing to the prior phasing, and here it is. It's the same slide that you just saw, okay? Phase one was much larger in the beginning at 352, and here's our new phase one with 216, both had a mixed-use building in it. The prior phase two was also to the left, also larger at 352. Here's phase two now, keeping it smaller at 216. Phase three of the old one was over here, was the hotel. We just shifted it over here to make phase three your largest phase now, 256. So we really just flopped the ends, because here's phase four of the old one, phase four of the new one that I just walked you through. But overall, when you kind of compare, what has been done, frankly, it's a change for the better as far as how it lays out, how that access, certainly much better on Russell, gets through all the municipal boundary lines, and most importantly, we now have a retail component in the retail corner on the property. Also, there were some revised utility plans that were submitted, and Dan will discuss those in a minute. We did receive Joe Brasso's comment letter at the end of last week. I'm sure we'll go through it tonight like you did last time, and just like last time, Dan and his team are preparing a written response to that like they always do, so that's in process. We held a neighborhood meeting on May 3rd right here in this room. It was direct notice to 700 homes. The notice was posted as logo post. It was posted at the Italian Benevolent Society. It was also run on the sign on Sand Creek for almost a week. So we had a lot of public notice about that neighborhood meeting. We had 120 people attend, which is a great turnout. This room was full. It was fantastic. Overall, it was a very positive meeting. About 15 people spoke at the end with questions or comments, and those were about build-out, timing, phasing, traffic, how the brownfield cleanup process works. Let's see what else. else, and stormwater. So kind of the typical issues that you'd expect at a planning board meeting or a neighborhood meeting. So I'm thankful for all the people that came out that night, to continue to come out to support the redevelopment, and the amount of people who came up to us after at the end, thanking us for what we've done to date and what we're doing, was very gratifying. Seeing the efforts that we're going through and go through. So it was a very good night. Speaking of meetings, the signs on the site notifying the public of the Consolidated Planning Board meetings per the public participation plan have been installed with 2 large signs up, and those will be updated in accordance with the board's meeting schedule. Okay, so that's now done. I just want to clarify one topic that was raised at the last meeting, and that was what's in the mixed-use building and what is and is not open to the public. The cafe certainly will be open to the neighborhood and the public. Some amenities will not. They'll be just for the residents who reside here, and that's really what's in the wellness and fitness center and entertainment center. But as we talked about, there will be shared co-working space in that building, and that certainly will also be open to the public. So it's a mix of some private and some public. A few notes on traffic. First, the revised plan affects the finalizing of the traffic study in a couple ways. First, the changes that you're looking at right there, it changed the phasing as far as what is in each phase. The number of phases stay the same, but what's in it, as far as unit count, et cetera, changes. So that changes how the traffic study is finalized. And also the decrease in hotel size and the addition of retail obviously changes the traffic patterns. So the study is now being modified and finalized accordingly based on this revised plan. Okay. Second, there's also been a discussion about the current condition of Exchange Street that we all know is not good at all, and the need to rebuild it kind of in partnership with the town of Colony. We totally agree. We agree that cost should not fall to the town of Colony solely, or conversely shouldn't fall to us solely. In this regard, we have a meeting with the Colony Department of Public Works and the Highway Department this week to make that happen. So that will occur. Third, as far as traffic goes, one way to decrease traffic is public transportation, as everyone knows. We've been in discussions with CDTA, as I've mentioned before, since we started this in 2015. Since the last meeting, we've had kind of a series of meetings with them, and CDTA fortunately has a route that goes right by this property on Exchange, which is great, so they don't have to alter any routes. They also have something called the Universal Access Program, and the Universal Access Program is where we buy passes for whether they're residents or the employees that allows them to ride on CDTA free 24/7. And we've agreed in concept with CDTA to do that, to make public transportation as much of a part of this as possible. And we're also in discussions with them about doing the bike share program. You see the share bike program that they have with CDPHP as well as CDTA. So we're hoping to do that as well as the Universal Access Program. So that really covers everything as far as the revisions to the plan, and also some issues that were lingering from last month. I just wanted to go through. So I'll turn it over to Dan to discuss the revised utilities, and just, we're going to ask that the board grants our concept acceptance, so Dan can now go to the next level of real detail engineering of the plan that's been revised per the comments of both the board designated engineer, the board, as well as the planning staff. Here you go, Dan.
Thank you, Bill. Utilities are somewhat in a state of flux. As the buildings moved around, therefore services moved around. We have modified the plan to serve the facilities. A major change was that the City of Albany Department of Water Supply, who acts on behalf of the Albany Water Board, requested that the sewer and water that serves the commons in the City of Albany be public. That would put us in a bad shape if we try to keep the portion in the town of Colony private, especially with the water service, because we would then have a mix. So our goal here is to have public water service serving the site. The water will be supplied through Latham Water District. We're not trying to solve the questions of billing of water between the two Agencies will leave that for smarter people to work on. We have some suggestions based upon how there are currently places where town of Colony water is provided to buildings within the city of Albany, and vice versa, I think also, so that there's something to base our opinion about how that should work. The other issue was the sewer service. We were told originally that this entire site was once served by a single sewer line. If you put up the sewer plan, I might be able to pick it out. Sheet 6, I think, is that. No, there are too many sheets. Go back to the last one and let me see if I can pick it out. There is an existing large diameter sewer service that came right into the First Prize building. And what that served was, the First Prize generated an awful lot of water. As a matter of fact, they use over 400,000 gallons a day of water per average day, and their peak flows were even higher. And it washed the detritus from the hog slaughtering and thing. I don't want to be more specific than that, but a whole bunch of things that would go down that drain that had to be handled. So they had a large diameter pipe, and it went right across Consolidated Rail and right into the Platoon Creek Interceptor Sewer, which is the other side of the Consolidated Rail. We were told that meter pit had been deactivated. But when we took a look at it, the meter pit has a weir in it that we have to tap measuring devices to, so it wasn't very much to make it active again. Bill Simcoe sent me from the City of Albany Department of Water and Water Supply. He's the deputy commissioner there. Sent me the as-built plans of it. We have those now, and we're working with that to see what has to be done to reactivate it. We believe that the easement granted by Consolidated Rail to the Albany County, at the time, it wasn't called whatever it's called, Water Purification District, it was the Albany County Sewer District, entails enough space for us to work on that pipe. The goal right now is it goes underneath the railroad in a 30-inch steel sleeve, and the pipe itself is a 24-inch cast iron pipe. We're not sure what the condition of it is. There's a good chance, being that we don't think the cast iron pipe was ever epoxy coated or anything. It may very well have deteriorated somewhat, but we're not sure at all. So we are going to video that length of pipe starting about here, going through there all the way down to the meter pit at the Platoon Creek Interceptor Sewer. There are plans about how we handle it. Ideally, we find a place that we can insert a PVC pipe. The entire site can be handled by an 8-inch PVC pipe, which is the same pipe as same size pipes that are in most of your streets in the town, unless you're on a major artery. Probably 90% of the sewers in the town of Colony are 8-inch pipes. The current pipes are all PVC, which is a modern plastic pipe, much better than the Fitzroy clay pipe, which was an older pipe, a lot more joined. So we have the capability of putting this and having the proper system in there. The question is, again, where that bill goes, when that goes into the county sewer system, a bill is generated to the City of Albany for that. The City of Albany has to have a way to divide it up among the buildings in the City of Albany and to provide for the buildings in the town of Colony. That's something that, again, all goes back to a methodology of handling that, which we think can be worked out. Like I said, it's just a factor of the water use. The sewer use in the City of Albany matches the water generation. The water bill matches the sewer bill. It's you charge the same amount for getting rid of the sewer discharge yard for the water coming in. It's all based upon cubic feet of water, which is converted to gallons, so we know how much water is gonna come out of these facilities. And therefore, we're able to size all the pipes. We do have, the water pipes, we do phase the water system. We are gonna bring in, first of all, it's a piece of the water main, which, Latham Water asked us to replace. There was a piece of cast iron pipe that, when New York State replaced the pipe in the center of Exchange Street down the point about here, they replaced it with ductile iron pipe, which is a much better pipe than a cast iron pipe. They asked us to extend it down to about here, another 250 feet with the pipe, and we agreed that, we showed it on our plan. And we will be able to loop a water main down through here and out through here to serve our area with a loop service. That means a portion of the area in phase number 4, the water main for that will be installed. And we also believe that that should be a place for the secondary emergency exit to the site, entrance and exit to the site, should be through this driveway. Until we get, as the project proceeds, we have another major entrance down here, and at that point there, the loop will occur, but since we have to serve this area anyway, believe that it's a good idea to make the sewer loop come down here and join into our phase 1 sewer, phase 1 water pipe. The sewer pipe is all designed to work by gravity. There's no need for any pump. We're not sure of the hydrant flow. We do have some hydrant flow tests which are, believe it or not, taken by West Albany Fire Department in 1969 or 1972. They're what we call a little outdated. Something may have changed. We asked the Latham Water District to run a fire flow test on a hydrant right about here. They couldn't do it because they're busy flushing hydrants in the area and flushing mains. They say that they normally are done with that by the end of May, so we have a standing request from them to run that hydrant flow test as soon as they can. The sewer and the water system stay pretty much the same, it's just the control of it is what we changed. We now have no sanitary sewer going out to the sewer in Exchange Street. We have had discussions with the Pure Waters Division to make us know pretty much what's there. We propose to videotape the existing sewer at the center, which runs pretty much down the center of Exchange Street, from Russell Road out to Exchange Street, and actually there's a manhole that's just past Exchange Street, which we are proposing to videotape that pipe to see what sort of condition it is. The concern is not necessarily with the capacity for the pipe to carry the sewage. The concern is what condition it is, and will any reconstruction done on Exchange Street or additional traffic on Exchange Street have any deleterious effect on that sewer. So we won't know until we take a look at the condition of that sewer. After that, we'll have a better idea. So we are, in addition to videotaping this sewer here, we'll be videotaping the connection that goes across the Raccoon Creek Interceptor sewer. Got a good knowledge on there. And as Bill mentioned, we are meeting tomorrow with people from the Highway Division and the Department of Public Works from the town to discuss what to do with Exchange Street, how to make it better. This plan includes a sidewalk the entire distance on the south side of Exchange Street from Everett Road, going all the way down, and we extended it down to the farthest driveway in West Albany Park. We show the sidewalk in an entire length, and also to make the edge of the pavement more obvious and clear at each of these intersections, and we will have curved intersections, and the roads inside the site will be curved. But on the rest of the site here, we propose to use a lip gutter, asphalt lip gutter, and we're trying to figure out how to work forward to have the rest of the pavement work done, and that's still under consideration. We'll find out more tomorrow, and we'll move forward from that. We did have a landscape, I didn't have a landscape plan shown up. We do have a landscape plan which continues along here, down to here, and actually from here down to here. And with our new phasing, our new phase 3 is beyond the limit there. The question was raised about, can we discharge the soil up here is Elnora sand, which is a sandy soil, which is capable of absorbing water without it. And it filters the water through the sand, and we're far enough from the groundwater there that we can do that. Our major concern is here, we're in a brownfield program. In New York State DEC, normally, when you finally close the brownfield, they issue a document which tells you, it's a management document, tells you how to manage the site in the future. And one thing is normally they don't want to infiltrate anything to the soil. So we're gonna take out the idea of using infiltration down here. We're gonna use a system that will allow us to store the stormwater and treat the stormwater. Our major treatment device on the site is hydrodynamic separators. They're a mechanical device. They're approved for water reconstruction, redevelopment sites. A redevelopment site under the New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual definition, and we'll meet that goal. Some questions were raised about the landscaping. The only landscaping really developed to any extent was the landscaping along the Exchange Street where the parking lots were. We developed that fairly significantly. The rest of the site we haven't yet worked on, and we'll definitely consider landscaping along the line with the West Albany Park. Be prepared to answer your questions or let Joe make his presentation and then see what questions you want to raise.
Joe, you ready for the comment? Joe Grasso is the board designated engineer from CHA.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So we did issue a letter, and it's dated May 11th. I think all the board members have received it. We did get a chance to review the revised application materials. Our letter is kind of divided up into two general sections. The first couple of comments touch on some of the more major issues that were brought up on previous reviews by the board and each municipality's planning staff, as well as some comments that we brought up in CHA's last letter and discussed at the last meeting. So these will become familiar to you. The second half of the letter is touched on some new information, just as the plans continue to advance. We want to make sure that we got some technical comments out there so that they could be incorporated into the more defined plans. So starting out with some of the things that came up from the previous reviews, the biggest one, and all of these things have been touched on in Bill's and Dan's presentation, but just as a reminder of where they originated, there was a significant concern regarding the main access road and its impacts on residents on the other side of Exchange Street. The main access was not aligned with Russell Road, and there was considerable concern about the impacts of that. So that is something that they have now accommodated in the revised plan. So the main entrance from the site is across from Russell Road. And fortunately, that access point and the buildings around it would be incorporated into the phase 1. So the initial development of the site would have that main access point right across from Russell Road, which we think will definitely alleviate some traffic issues and improve overall safety for access to the site. Dan mentioned in his remarks about a second means of access. Based on the scale of phase 1, even with it being reduced down to 216 units, we do think that a second means of access would need to be accommodated into the phase 1 plans. And one option would be to extend a second entrance either down into phase 2 or phase 3. But Dan had mentioned alternatively a development of that second access point within phase 4, which is in that new water main loop, and that is something that we think is an admirable feature of the plan and something that should continue to be pursued as the plans advance. The second comment, there was a lot of concern expressed regarding the multiple buildings straddling the municipal boundaries, which affects a whole variety of issues like postal addresses, school districts, taxation, emergency response. And fortunately, through their redesign effort, they were able to get all the buildings located wholly within one municipality or the other. And we do understand that it required a lot of revisions to the plan, but we do think that it creates a much cleaner development proposal moving forward and eliminates a lot of those issues that there were a lot of concerns over. There was one comment, and it wasn't a significant concern raised, but there was a comment about, the fact that the project has changed since it was originally conceived, I think 7 or 8 years ago, and one of which was the loss of the retail space. Now, Bill did mention about the mixed-use building that is further into the site, but they have been able to accommodate a new, it's a 12,000 square foot retail building up on Exchange Street, and then shrunk down the footprint of the hotel. And we also think that that's a desirable feature of the revised plan and should address some of those concerns. So those are the major issues that we saw that were changed since the last meeting. Those were the things that we saw were holding up, the board feeling comfortable with the concept acceptance. There are a lot of additional technical comments and other comments that they're still working through. One of which is the completion of the traffic study, and we appreciate the fact that with the revised concept plan and revised phasing boundaries, all of those things we're going to translate into needing to redo or substantially modify the work that they've done on the traffic study. So, but in general, from a concept site plan standpoint, and again, I know the town of Colony has a formal concept acceptance step. It's not a binding approval, but it's basically a board action that indicates a general acceptance of the general layout, functional layout of the buildings and uses on the site. I think in the city of Albany, they go through a multi-step review process, but there aren't formal approvals along the way. You just advance your plans and your reviews until you get to a final plan standpoint. But I think this is a good opportunity for the Consolidated board to weigh in on the concept acceptance. Again, it's a way to give the applicants team some assurance that the general concept is acceptable and worthy of a continuation of the seeker review as well as the final engineering. Dan talked about a lot of the engineering studies continue to advance, but I think the general concept of those utilities, how they're going to be serviced, is at the concept level, and a lot of those things have come a long way since originally presented. So it's, if the board so chooses tonight, they could consider, concept acceptance determination. Sometimes the seeker review is something that's done along with concept. Sometimes it's held till the tail end of the project, based on, some of the unknowns regarding the level of reconstruction over Exchange Street and these utilities that Dan mentioned, as well as, the completion of the traffic study and the need for off-site impacts. We do think that it would be premature for the board to make a secret determination, and we would recommend that the board withhold any secret determination until there's more answers regarding those potential impacts and any mitigation measures. So that's something that could come out later on in the process. Probably we could, look at a seeker determination by the board prior to final, because I think we're months away from a final engineering and ready for any kind of final plan approval. But again, it's not something that we would recommend be considered tonight. So then the second half of the letter kind of goes through technical items. They get into the engineering review. A lot of these are utility-related things that Dan had mentioned. And then one thing that we had continued to recommend was the reconstruction of Exchange Street as mitigation for the traffic-related impacts and the construction-related impacts. The reconstruction of Exchange Street, it's good to see that the applicant's team is going to sit down with the town and county representatives tomorrow to discuss that. It dovetails in with that sewer that exists within Exchange Street, which is a town and county sewer. Even though the project is not going to tie into that sewer at all anymore, it's going to go to the Patroon Creek Omni sewer system. Given its age, unknowing its, or not knowing its condition, we obviously don't want to have anybody invest in the reconstruction of Exchange Street and have problems with that sewer because of its depth. It would require a lot of deep excavation and reconstruction if we have to get into that sewer and do any repairs. So the appropriate time to look at that is now, and we commend the applicant for taking that on us. At least that investigation is part of the project. So Dan talked about the landscaping plan, which we feel comfortable with. We do recommend that the board take a close look at that and provide comments. I do know that there was a trail connection or a greenway connection to the Patroon Creek, what's the formal name?
Patroon Creek Greenway.
Greenway, Patroon Creek. So that's something that still needs to be investigated further. So with that, I'm not going to go through all the detailed engineering comments. I'm sure those things can be addressed by the team as the plans advance.
Okay, to the departments, Brad or Sean, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was wondering if the team could point out where on the plan that greenway connection might be located, if you've done any due diligence as to where that would potentially tie in, based upon the documents that we had sent.
Sure. So the Patroon Creek Greenway, and you guys know, we can explain it better than I do. It's going to be a greenway. I think it goes from the Hudson River
To University of Albany.
Yeah. So it runs along the south side of this site is a rail line, an active rail line. The greenway it's across the rail line off of our site. The proposed greenway runs south of the rail line. So, we embrace it. It would be a wonderful asset to the community, to have, pedestrian connectivity right there. I think, the hurdle the Greenway is gonna have is, how do they get over an active rail line to our site? I don't know where they are as far as funding or design or construction, and maybe you do. But certainly, we'd love to have them. If they can get to us, it would be an amenity for us, for the people, for the entire, I think, West Albany, connect to the Greenway. But, that hurdle of getting over an active rail line is not for me to discuss. That's for the Greenway. But certainly, we embrace the concept. It'd be great.
Sean, do you have anything?
I'm glad to see the addition of the commercial space in there. Bill, I know this has a Restore New York grant attached to the project. How does the timing of that in phase 4 affect the square footage you need to satisfy to trigger that grant program?
So, I guess just because this revised concept is so new, that's something we're actually gonna have to get back and talk to you as well as ESD.
Okay.
Because this is the first time presenting it, but we understand that connection and we'll work through it.
Yeah, it might need to pop up in phasing.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, thank you.
To the board? Vanessa?
Good for right now. I'm glad that they made changes. I think it's definitely that definitely helps in all of the issues that were covered this evening as well as at the last meeting. I did have a question regarding the buildings down at the bottom.
Yeah, along the south side.
Yeah, where do you plan, is that where you plan to, no, okay. Is that where you plan to have the, mixed-use building?
The mixed-use building is right in the middle.
Is that one with,
That's the, right, so what happened, it's right at the main entrance. So when you
Okay.
come in, you're gonna turn in, you're gonna have a nice boulevard entrance, and right there is gonna be your preeminent mixed-use building. It's really gonna serve as the center of the entire community.
okay,
So
and
that's it right
then the question is, I'm assuming that the mixed use will mean that there'll be, commercial space on the bottom and then residential above that.
That's all commercial space in there. The entire building is commercial. That's gonna be your food and beverage, your gathering spaces, your wellness, your fitness, your shared co-working space. That's all gonna be in one building. Can you
Okay,
guys hear me okay? Sorry, I don't have, I'll speak up.
and then I guess my next question is, and I probably am getting too much in the weeds, so let me know. The black space behind it, what is that supposed to?
That represents the outdoor recreation area.
Got it.
It's gonna be a pool, it's gonna be, I know the chairman had asked where you're gonna have some of your families will have an area back there as far as some kind of small playground, gathering areas. So that's just an extension of the
And this is not open to the public, it's just for the residents?
parts of it, and that's what I mentioned before. So your cafe certainly will be, all right? So you want that open to the public, that's gonna
Okay.
serve coffees and smoothies and that stuff. Your shared co-working space, absolutely open to the public. What won't be, will be the amenities really geared towards the people who live here. Your wellness center, your fitness center, your movie theaters, your pool, that is not. So it's partially public and partially not.
So then I guess my next question
Yeah.
is, because it's surrounded by residential buildings.
Yep.
Where would people who are visiting park?
So the parking plan is really gonna be determined in the next phase. What you're
Oh,
seeing,
okay.
I mean, you just see, you have parking here, you have parking here, so you have parking all around it.
Well, I see the front of it being the main road.
Yeah.
So then the only thing that I do see is, minimal, to have a movie theater and a cafe
Mhm.
is very minimal parking on both the left and the right
Yeah.
side, but then in the back.
Mhm.
And then I can only assume that the remainder of the parking would be for residential use.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be, if you live here, you're gonna walk there, or at least we hope you're gonna walk there.
Right.
Right, you're trying to make this a pedestrian friendly. We have sidewalks, we have something. So if you live here and you want a cup of coffee in the cafe here, you're not gonna get into your car, right? That's the site design. Let's make it a place where you're gonna walk. So the parking that we're gonna have here is really driven for the people who come in from off the site. But as we advance this, post concept acceptance, and then Dan goes to the next level, that's where the parking really gets drilled down.
Okay, so I'm a little premature with
Yeah.
that. I'm just looking at it based upon your description of
Understood.
what's going to be in that.
Mhm. I got it.
That, it's definitely welcoming to people in the neighborhood.
It's the plan.
You know what I mean? So we're having to go all the way to Cross Gates or
Yeah.
Colony to be able to come here. And so I can see that parking compete, as a resident, I don't want to compete with parking from people who are
Understood.
visitors, so.
Yep.
But this building here has
Uh-huh.
parking underneath it.
Oh, underneath.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, every building
All
does.
That's
all
what
the
I was
residential
looking at.
buildings have
Okay.
parking underneath it. That's why it looks like there's not enough parking for all these units, because if you add in the ones underneath the building, you got a significant number of more parking spaces.
Okay.
Sorry. So we own and manage about over 1,000 multifamily units. The biggest mistake you can make is not having enough parking, because you can't fix it, and it drives people crazy. So we understand the ratios you need. Okay, so if you can generally get about 1.75 spots per unit, up to 2 spots per unit, you're safe. If you go under that, it's a train wreck, and we understand it because this is what we do.
Okay.
So we're very, very sensitive to parking and the quantities at all times.
All right. No, that's just very helpful to, again, looking at your new plan, I do applaud the changes that you made.
Thank you.
It definitely helps in a lot of the issues that were raised at the last meeting. But I was, just in looking at it, I was like, for all of that, I don't think there's enough, and I can see issues and complications. So
Gotcha.
next time I say that I don't have anything to say, just.
Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, great improvements. I think it will definitely streamline the next steps in this process. I applaud you for, including the universal access program as a potential benefit for residents to encourage more transit use. I think it's still primarily going to be an auto-dependent type of development, but anything that we can do to encourage transit ridership is good in my book. What you mentioned, walkability. I would love to see in future conversations the consideration of curb sidewalks on the south side of Exchange Street. I know there's some supply chain issues with curbing at the moment, so even a poured concrete solution might work out there. And certainly considerations for the Bertrand Creek Greenway, and thinking about, routing options. Nobody likes to work with the railroad, and certainly you're not going to be doing that for the trail. But I know that has been a long time priority for both Colony and City of Albany folks working on that. So that's all I have, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. I echo everyone else's comments. Vast improvement. Thank you. The mixed-use building.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that to present the grant as you pull onto the property.
Yep.
You want to try to find a way to shift that building a little to the east.
Okay.
So that it aligns the mixed-use building.
Okay.
So that it aligns with your entrance, so that as you're pulling in, it's just a spectacular view. And I don't think I think you could probably do that by making the one building a little bigger and the other building a little bit smaller, and really not changing any of your phasing all that much. The mixed-use building with a pool,
Yep, that one.
because right now it's
Oh,
offset
you
from
want
the
to
center.
I get it.
Yeah,
The center's right here someplace rather.
right, it's just a thought.
Understood.
I agree that curving along the south side of Everett would go a long way to not only improving the look of Everett, but also.
Exchange.
I'm sorry, yeah, Exchange, sorry. But would also enhance the look of your project in the end. So just to confirm from a utility standpoint, in phase one, you're gonna bring water in for that, what we'll call that emergency access road, loop it around, and then go back out, correct? None of the other interior roads or anything are gonna be built during phase one, correct?
We didn't intend to build anything down here.
Correct.
We wanted to stop at the limit of phase one, which is here, and leave phase two, obviously, in the current phase, in phase three road. So again, the size of phase one has become a little smaller, and phase two is also smaller. A lot was put into phase three. But as Bill has said all along, this is all market driven. We're not sure,
Okay,
if somebody should come down and knock on his door and say they want to build a 125 room hotel tomorrow, I'm pretty sure that phase would move up quickly.
yes. In the old entrance, it looked like you had a special feature in the middle of the old, can you pull up?
Can you go do the comparison there?
Yeah. You had, I don't know whether it was walkways or you were envisioning a pond or something. I'm not sure what you were envisioning. What are you envisioning in the new?
I think he said pond.
This here was green space to be determined. Dike is this space here. We think that this green space is large enough that we can get some walking bicycle capabilities around it to be large enough to have people comfortable walking on a multimodal path in that. This one here, we're not exactly sure how to use it, whether based on sitting capabilities, people to sit and enjoy the weather, enjoy the trees. This one here is problematic, and we're, Joe Grasso raised the issue again about there's a problem with this.
And I agree with Joe's comment.
Yeah, so this may very well have to go away, and we may have to change the geometry of this roadway to get rid of that center island, because if we have to get access to both sides of the road, we can't have that large island in the middle.
Okay.
So, it's the balance, right? You want a nice entry, green space entrance grant, maybe it doesn't function as well as a standard 2-lane entrance. So we're fighting with that based on, comments we're hearing.
Okay. To the point about parking, I mean, I agree, I mean, as of late, and I now understand that you're going to be tweaking the parking, because I had the same concern about parking around the mixed-use building. Your ratio in phase one is right, but it's maybe not allocated toward buildings correctly, at least yet. And then the last comment I had was about landscaping, and I guess I'll just throw that over to Joe. The landscaping is very intense, but it's I think there's 4 plants that comprise almost all the landscaping. It might be nice to see a little more variety.
Understood. And we're sensitive to that, right? I mean, we're sensitive to that being one of the main issues that we've heard, making sure that the landscaping and whatever other kind of hardscape treatments we do along Exchange Street are, of a good quantity and good quality. So
Yeah.
as we advance out of the concept level, we'll definitely keep that in mind, take it hard.
I tend to use things that I know survive, with plows and stuff going around with salty environment. And again, as you get to some of the trees or shrubs that give you better color and better variety, some of those don't really survive that well.
Yeah.
In an automobile environment, so.
I get that, but I think there are some projects that have been done, certainly in the town, where there's been a little more variety and a little more color. I mean, that's a long stretch of the same plant over and over and over again. But again, it's a much better improved plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't disagree with anything that anybody has said. To landscaping, I looked at Fresh Market, the mall, and I know what they thought. If you look at the landscaping around the perimeter of that parking lot, it's probably, to me, one of the premier landscapes with all color, all summer, all spring. They do a lot of annual stuff too. So I'm not saying it's the cheapest thing to maintain, but as far as providing that really nice look around the commercial establishment, I'll just ask you to look at that.
Yep.
A couple things, if you can put up this, the phase map again. To the point that Dan, I think, brought up. Obviously, phase 4 is last. You get a hot tenant that wants to do the commercial. I mean, does that move 4 up to 2?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that's very important.
Yeah.
'Cause, these times you never know on that corner.
Absolutely.
You never know what's going to go on. The one thing I'm concerned about, and I have brought it up before, is the remediation of the rest of the property as for phase 1 is being built. In other words, if you look at what's there now, it's not the best looking place. And if you look at phase 2 and phase 3, those areas are not good looking at all.
Correct.
So I'd like to see a plan or at least a paragraph or something that gives us an idea before final of what kind of remediation you're going to do to make that a little better. Because that could be years down the road, correct?
Yeah, it can.
So we definitely want to see something there.
And Steve, Chairman, let me just comment on that. So we did all of, what you're seeing is piles of all the crushed materials on site. We intend on utilizing a lot of that with phase 1 and then spreading it out on the other phases. So what you don't want to see and what neighbors don't want to see is exactly what we don't want to see is, build a really nice phase 1 and then have, something terrible next to it. That doesn't help us, right? It doesn't help someone who wants to live here. They're going to drive in and be, oh, this is nice, and they look to the right. So we always phase our projects and we always make sure that the subsequent phases are taken into consideration when we finish phase 1, that, whether you just, get everything down and hydroseed it and fence it and screen it. But what you're seeing there, because we're, in the middle of a DEC cleanup, that will not look like that when phase 1 ends. But I'll put it in writing, so but we hear you and agree.
Because it's not just 2 and 3, it's 4 also.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to build this beautiful thing in the middle of something that's not quite so beautiful.
No, we're sensitive to that also.
So I think it's very important. I echo everybody's comments to tremendous change from what was previously presented. And I think goes a long way in satisfying the board in what they've been asking for. To that extent, any more discussion from the board? Any other comments?
I'll just have one question. Was there a record of the public comment from the meeting?
We didn't record it or take minutes or anything.
Okay.
Sorry.
To that extent, I'm gonna ask for somebody here who was there, who wasn't part of the team here, but who could make a couple comments. Kurt, don't talk as long as you normally talk. But Kurt from the fire department was here for the entire meeting. I had a discussion with him afterward. I thought it was important that he bring to the board an idea of the template of that meeting.
I think the biggest concern, I mean, it was well accepted by most everybody in the room. The biggest concern is traffic. The people off Wilkins Avenue, people off Fairfield Avenue are extremely concerned about the traffic that we already have going down there. And then, of course, the flooding of the water coming off for the site. You know, they built Palisades and everything up there and Lower Exchange Street. You know how much we're down there for flooding. That was the main concerns of the whole meeting, was traffic and flooding.
And that's a major concern here.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, so it's not like it's an elephant in the room. It's out of the cage, as far as that goes. Any other comment from the town, city? Open up to public comment. Anybody like to make a comment? If you do, if you could please step forward so we could hear you and maybe grab the mic, give your name and address. Anybody here? Yeah.
You should be able to hear me. Stan Scott, a member of the fire company here and over on off of Fairfield.
If you could just get the microphone, because we do have the
live
stream, yeah,
Thank you. I just,
Stan, you're on Fairfield, is that? Or did you say you're on Fairfield?
I live off of Fairfield,
Wendell.
Thanks.
I haven't, maybe I missed it. My only question is, this is gonna be an all-electric complex, correct?
Correct.
Underground,
Correct.
where are you gonna run all this power in from? Because you can't take it away from us around here, because did you figure in EVs in the next 15 years?
So that is all National Grid. National Grid does the on-site design. We're going all electric because New York State's telling us we're going all electric. So, it's a Herculean task. And like you, I have a lot of concerns about the grid. But when the government tells me I have to build all electric and National Grid tells me I'm going to get you all electric, that's what I do.
Okay, that was my basic question. The other one, I got a bunch of my neighbors, when's the stack coming down? Thank you.
Electronic vehicles is a concern for everybody, because as they become more, you need more charging, it puts a real drain on the power grid. So hopefully National Grid can step up to the plate and solve that problem, then we'll be part of the solution.
Anybody else from the public? Okay.
I can speak loudly.
If you can.
It's not loud enough.
Yeah, because otherwise the microphone doesn't pick it up for
Okay.
folks at home.
Thank you. I'm Susan Weber. I live on Pepper Lane off Albany Shaker. And this is really fascinating. It's a very exciting project.
Thank you.
Mike, I have two questions. This is kind of a silly question, but I haven't been involved before and I don't know where the municipal boundary is. Could you tell us where that is?
Can you pull it up, Aaron? All right. So if you think you're going to see a straight line, Susan, you're going to be disappointed.
Uh-oh.
There it is.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So here we go. Everything south of where I'm pointing underneath is the city of Albany. Everything above is the town of Colony. Let me get out of your way. Okay, here you go. Follow me.
Sit down for a second.
See that? Right, so I'm starting here. I'm following that line. I'm going up here, then I shoot up.
Oh, too
I
cool.
come over, then I come down,
No.
and then I shoot over this way. That is your really that's why we've really struggled, if you haven't been here, Susan, this whole issue has been with buildings that were bisected by a line. It's like, well, what fire department's gonna come out? What police is gonna come out? What building department? What schools are these kids gonna go to? So during this whole redesign process, we worked to make sure that it's now in two distinct municipalities to get rid of all those issues, and it just takes a lot off an already very incredible complex redevelopment.
I'm sure there have been efforts to put all of it into one or the other municipality, right? Anybody thought of it? You have. So I'll shut up about that. One more question. What about rooftop solar?
So,
Do that?
you know, there's two ways to do solar, and Sean's brought it up. There's rooftop solar, there's also the carports, you know, where you have the solar panels on the carports. It's not, because we're already going all electric, you know, which is a pretty substantial endeavor to make, because it's technically not a requirement until 2026, but we know it's coming. Rooftop solar isn't something that we look at in a project like this. We don't like the carports with the big roof, with the big solar panels on top. They have a very, just aesthetically, they're not really the greatest look. And some people it doesn't bother, but a lot of people it does. And you know, the same with the rooftops. You know, it's not exactly aesthetically favorable to everyone. And, you know, if we weren't going, you know, already going all electric, or frankly, if we didn't already, you know, talk about sustainability and smart growth and going green, I mean, look what we did, right? We took down the biggest eyesore in the entire area, and we're putting up a nice, you know, quiet community that's going to really be an improvement to the whole area. So, you know, with that said, we have a lot of quality sustainability aspects to this project, just the overall project being one that we don't feel the need to then add solar.
That would really make it fancy if you had it rooftop, if you had it all, like the wonderful place in Schenectady that's totally sustainable and all.
Yeah, no, net zero.
Okay,
I know.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
All right, what's before the board tonight is whether or not we grant concept acceptance. The granting of concept acceptance, the project, you know, the board designated engineer feels that it has moved along far enough to where that is a viable option for tonight. Obviously, it's not granting final approval. Final approval still comes down the road. But I'd be looking for a motion to grant that concept acceptance for the board. Glennis?
Second.
Second, Mark, all in favor? Aye. And that's without your solar panels. Bill, you had to see his face when you're describing your feelings on solar panels.
We did the ICO project.
Especially the ugly ones on the parking lot, because they have been known to present a few of those.
That I'm aware of.
The only other thing left in the meeting list, anybody has it, is the date for the June and July meetings. I mean, are we to the point here where we have to have a June meeting just to have a June meeting? Or is there a lot of technical stuff that has to transpire to where?
I think that, we can dispense with the meeting until we get to start getting into preliminary plan sets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I agree. We don't need a June meeting, because what's going to happen now is, number one, the traffic study, you know, now it's being finalized with the revisions. That's big. And when that comes in, everybody needs time to chew on it, you know, the experts. So no need for June because of that reason. And then, you know, Dan will be advancing the plans. I think what we should do is set a July meeting, you know, because it's 2 months away. And then if we get closer to it, you know, when I say set it, we have the third Monday boxed out anyway. But I would say no reason for the June one, with the anticipation of coming back in July.
To that point in July, there's a couple of us that already have a conflict.
Gotcha.
Third Monday.
Yep.
So we may have to move that anyway.
Yep.
July is a tough month.
I know it is.
With vacation, so.
Yep.
I think we can address that moving forward,
We'll do that.
and as long as we give the public enough notice.
Understood.
Change the sign to whatever we have to do.
Yep.
And then we can go from there. So there will not be a meeting in June.
July as needed.
And July is up in the air depending on
And schedules.
how things transpire.
Understood.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Anybody over there? No? Bill?
No, thanks for your time, everyone. Really appreciate it.
We stand adjourned.
down, but.
Maybe we'll see in the fall.
We'll see.
Yeah.